You are listening to Radio Aula Mundi.
Hi there, wherever you are. I'm Marco Rixecker, a freelance writer, reporter, producer, teacher, translator, tour guide, poet, singer, and songwriter. I speak several languages, and I'm the creator and founder of Radio Aula Mundi, an evolving podcast station where no language and all languages are spoken. It's a multilingual mix of music, poetry, lectures, languages, interviews, documentaries, recipes, and a lot more, co-produced with the students of the Aula Mundi International Cultural Center. You can find us on radioaulamundi.bandcamp.com, podcasts.apple.com, Spotify, YouTube, Breaker, Player FM, Facebook. Search Radio Aula Mundi. The following narrative includes excerpts from a collection of testimonies and interviews entitled Let's Talk About It Anywhere in the World, where it is all about people's voices, accents, and speech patterns, hand in hand with my own personal anecdotes and observations. In addition to that, people are free to introduce themselves and speak their minds openly, in their respective, often indigenous, languages and dialects, without any paraphrases or expectations. So, let the story go on from there. Arielle Vakni is a musician based in Taos, New Mexico. And a while ago she has teamed up with a South African musician by the name of Vince to form a band that goes by the name of ANIMA with an exclamation point. And she and I are going to speak online from different places in the world. She is sitting in her cool home studio in Taos, surrounded by her equipment. It doubles as a workshop for her second professional activity as a music teacher. And today we have a special guest here. So, tell us, who are you?
Hello, I'm Louise.
Hi Louise, how are you doing today?
Good. You?
Pretty good. So tell us, what got you interested in Arielle?
Well, you asked me to listen to bits and pieces of her interview.
So yeah, bits and pieces that I've put together into a playlist. So tell us about playlist 1.
Arielle Vakni is a singer and musician from the band ANIMA. She lives in Taos, New Mexico, which strongly impacts her music and creative inspiration for its landscapes. I think that it is interesting to see how nature and surroundings influence art. Marc Chagall once said, "Great art picks up where nature ends."
I'm Arielle Vakni from the band ANIMA, and I am coming from Taos, New Mexico.
What's the weather like over there right now?
Oh, it's perfect. It's 70 degrees and it's sunny and a little bit of wind, but very nice.
Please describe your immediate surroundings.
I'm in my studio and music school here in Taos. It's called Weird Bird Music, and this is where I practice. I'm currently packing for a tour that I'm headed out on tomorrow.
How much do your surroundings make it into your music?
I mean, it's all there for sure. I'm definitely inspired by the landscape here and the rough terrain, the desert meeting the forest. We've got a little bit of both here, and it's definitely a really creative place overall. A lot of great artists here and a lot of inspiration for writing.
Has Taos chosen you, or have you chosen Taos?
I think a little bit of both. They always say this is one of those places where you come to visit and you end up never leaving. And they're definitely right about that. It happened to me. And it's happened to a lot of my friends and loved ones in the area too.
Well, over the years, music has become something easier, impromptu, and scrambled for Arielle, which I think is really interesting, because as she talked earlier about how music helps her express her emotions, it seems that it's something more natural and almost instinctive for her. She also talks about how her music has been impacted by the different cultures that Arielle and her co-band member Vincent live in, as he lives in South Africa. I wonder if these cultures influence both the shape and the meaning of the music. By shape, I mean the rhythms, lyrics, etc. And she talked earlier of the meaning of music being to help her express emotions. So would these emotions be different from one culture to the other?
How musical do you feel today?
I feel I'm in this space where I feel ready to go on the road and show some people what I've been working on. I feel like um, I didn't have a whole lot of ease with improv and being in the moment today, but I really feel in control of the music that I'm playing and I really feel ready. The last thing I'd like to feel is a little bit more freedom in my performance in this moment. Maybe that'll be different tomorrow.
What's the first musical memory that you have in life?
Singing along to the radio or CDs as a kid in the car. I think that was where it started for me.
Do you remember any particular song?
Uh-huh. Definitely the Beatles. I was gonna say, I think you'll find that most musicians, not all, but most have a memory about the Beatles from some time in their early life, right? Um, I was born in 91, so the 90s was the time that I came up in, and I think it was a great time in music. A lot of rock and pop from the 90s that I grew up on, it was a great time for women in music with all of these Sheryl Crow, Sarah McLachlan. I wouldn't say that they're influences of mine now, but just getting to see women in the center of their music career was the big inspiration for me as a kid.
How much of your current hometown or home place can we find in your music when we listen to, let's say, your latest record?
It's definitely in there, and along with all of the other places that I've lived in my hometown too. I'm from Northern California originally, and Vince, my bandmate and songwriter, we write this music long distance, and he's over in Cape Town, South Africa. So you can sort of feel a lot of different worlds in the different songs that we write. And this last EP in particular was written all around. We had been doing a lot of projects for brands and companies, and sort of writing and piecing together music and trying things and pitching them. And whilst I was doing that, I was traveling a lot. So it's interesting you say that, and maybe you could hear that in the music.
How much of a U-turn has your music taken over the years?
I think it's honestly grown into something different with every release that we do. It's sort of there's themes throughout our sound that have remained the same, and there are a lot of different. We just get so we find it really hard to stick to one way of doing things, one set of sounds, one song form or approach to writing music. So you might call that a little bit scrambled, but I feel that every time we put something out, we build upon the last thing we did and we try something new.
How could you sell your music to a deaf person?
Oh, good question. I think, wow, I don't know how to answer that one. I would hope that I can communicate the feeling that I get when I listen to that music, and that's a state of calm and playfulness and joy.
To Arielle Vakni, music helps her express and amplify emotions, as well as relate to others. Her music is balanced by the dualities between softness and organicity, clashing with an electronic and edgy aura, which reminds me of Parmenid's dualism. His theory was that the world is ruled by contrast, for example, between good and evil. Without knowing the opposite of something, we cannot appreciate it. In the same way, her art contrasts different genres, and in this way makes them individually stick out, while still creating a beautiful harmony. We could also say that her music could be considered as flowing in live, because she tries to really share an experience with the audience.
What's the point of music?
I think the point of music for me is to help us feel, let me say that in a different way, to help us feel the feelings that we have more intensely, to help us express those feelings and relate to each other about the way that we feel. I think music's the best way to bring out emotion in people.
What kinds of emotions make you want to dance?
Joy and feeling empowered. I think those are the two big ones for me. And finding peace and comfortability. Those are two important things when it comes to letting go and feeling music.
What's the color of your music?
I'd say a bright pink, kind of like a magenta.
Where does that color come from? Is that Taos, New Mexico by any chance?
I think it comes from the playfulness and the sort of animated quality we try to bring to it. It comes from the most colorful parts of organic elements. When I think of that color, I think of fuchsia flowers and just bright colors against an organic, natural background. We're always trying to play with textures that are edgy and electronic mixed with sort of soft and organic and raw.
How visual is your music?
It's on stage, it is, we try to have again, with the way that I dress and the visuals that we have on stage, bright colors and organic shapes and textures. We've had a great animator make us some art that we have used with our last release that we'll be using on this tour. And I try to show what I feel through the movements in my body and try to connect with people in a way that we're all experiencing this movement and this color together in these songs.
How does it work then, technically speaking? So do you just fade from one song to another, or would there be sort of a break between songs?
Sometimes it's a little bit of both. Sometimes there's a break, sometimes it flows from one to the next. And sometimes I'm creating these loops and sort of interludes between songs where there's a little bridge or connection between a song that goes to a new place that's not in either song. It's more of just a live experience.
Which song of yours are you most comfortable with at the moment to play on stage, and which song of yours would be a challenge?
Good question. I'd say that I'm most comfortable with our song An Old Tune from the EP that we put out about a year ago now. That one's feeling really solid and flowing nicely. Another one would be Overflow from our last release before that. And what's been a challenge? I would say that it's the transitions between songs that are the challenge right now. They're feeling good, but they're a little different every time, and they're goes back to what I was saying before with the finding freedom in the music. I'm learning to let go a little bit more when I play and see what happens in that moment of that performance. So just the challenge of improving more and letting go.
Anima has been impacted in many ways by many diverse cultures. Arielle says that, for her, realizing that she wanted to do music has been a long awakening. It reminds me of what Pablo Picasso once said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." Because she said that she always wanted to make music fun, both as a teacher and as a person. So I think that Arielle, as an artist, and by making music fun and joyful, it allowed her to keep her inner child when making art.
Where does the band name come from, and especially with that cute exclamation mark?
The band name has a couple meanings. One is from the Carl Jung theory, the female part of the male psyche versus animus, the opposite. And the other definition we've heard is breath of life. And we thought that was fitting. And the exclamation point just comes from, I guess, adding a little bit of fun to it. Something different.
How did it all start out?
Well, Vince and I, we went to college together in Boston, Massachusetts, and we lived across the street from each other. We realized after meeting up to see if we wanted to do a school project together for a production and songwriting course that we were taking. And we ended up being neighbors, so we met up a lot, started working together on an album of mine. And towards the end of our time in college, we decided to write a few songs together and see how it goes. And we did, and we put them out on the internet without thinking a whole lot of it. And we woke up one day and we had tens of thousands of people that had listened to these songs, and we had already separated at that point. He had to go back to Cape Town, South Africa, and I had to go back to the West Coast until we figured out our next move, and that's when we accidentally became a band.
When did you wake up in the morning and knew you were going to be a professional musician?
Maybe that would be, oh, that's a tough one because there's all these little moments along the way. The first time you book a paid gig, or the first time your music gets featured in something that people are taking notice to. I think it was more of a long awakening. I woke up one day and realized, oh, it had already happened, I guess.
Arielle Vakni is an experienced teacher. She tries to communicate her love for music through her courses, always keeping in mind to make it fun. For her, there is no typical class. She customizes her class depending on her students' needs. What makes her such a great musician is that she is constantly in search of getting better at different skills and changing up her patterns.
How would you describe yourself as a teacher?
I have been teaching for quite a long time now, about 12 years, and I really try to bring first of all, I think the most important thing when you're learning or teaching music is to have fun and enjoy what you're doing, because as soon as it becomes a chore, we check out and we don't give it the same love and presence that it had when it was something new and exciting. So whatever it takes to create a sense of fun and joy in a lesson is what I'm after. I think I am very open to where the student is at and what they need and what their particular goals are. I'm always trying to customize my classes and lessons to what that particular person really needs and what they're good at and how we can show that off in their music and their performance.
So in the field of music, what do you still have to learn?
I think there's always going to be new lessons in any art form, because the more that I do this, the more I see that it's all about changing the patterns that you've put yourself into. Every time I get really good at something or really comfortable with something, I want to change the way that I do it, and I want to change my approach, because that's the only way that I can keep growing and getting better at what I do.
What do you think, Marco? Does she do that with other art forms too, like poetry, for example?
Yes, you're right. So, for example, at the end of my conversation with Arielle, I'm curious about poetry and ask her about it. And then I make sure she does a reading performance of a poignant poem that I sent her in a message. How much poetry is there in your music?
I think I wouldn't call myself a poet by any means, but I think it's poetry in my own way. When I write lyrics, sometimes it's coming from a place of writing them as spoken word first and feeling the rhythm of them. And then other times it's just kind of stream of consciousness. Whatever I'm feeling and thinking is what comes out on the page.
Morning Song by Sylvia Plath.
Love set you going like a fat gold watch. The midwife slapped your foot soles and your bald cry took its place among the elements. Our voices echo, magnifying your arrival. New statue. In a drafty museum, your nakedness shadows our safety. We stand round blankly as walls. I'm no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacement as the wind's hand. All night your moth breath flickers among the flat pink roses. I wake to listen. A far sea moves in my ear. One cry and I stumble from bed, cow-heavy and floral in my Victorian nightgown. Your mouth opens clean as a cat's. The window square whitens and swallows its dull stars. And now you try your handful of notes. The clear vowels rise like balloons.
Postscript. As part of my conversations with people, I often have them ask questions, either specifically for someone I know I'm going to chat with in the near future, or broadly, for anyone I might speak with, anytime, anywhere in the world. As a result, 3 questions are available for Arielle Vakni. The first comes from a Navajo artist, filmmaker, musician, singer, and songwriter by the name of Pete Sands. He asks his question in Dinebizad, the Navajo language, first, and then repeats it in English.
Ashikao, A, Munti. In English, that would be, how are you breathing?
Oh, that's a great question. You said breathing, right? How am I breathing? Well and mindfully, because I just finished a rehearsal and I got to really take my time and ease with it and find some space and some pause when I've been going, trying to prep and rush to get things ready. And today was a nice, easy breath.
The next question comes from a contemporary visual artist from Los Angeles by the name of Jim Shaw. It is about inventiveness and novelties in the world of the arts, and Arielle has to think a little bit about this one.
Is there anything new under the sun?
I think another thing that I've thought about a lot is there anything original anymore? Are we all just sort of copying and pasting things to mosaic into new forms, right? And I think the answer is that it is new because there's always an element that is a little bit of you in it that nobody else can bring to that particular piece, art, music, whatever it is, you know? If you did your job of putting your little piece of human self into what you made, then it can't be replicated the same way.
The last question, coming from someone else, is from one art field to another. Karen Harriman, a poet based in Los Angeles, asked the question for any musician, and in her answer, does Arielle discuss the relationship between her surroundings and her work as a musician again?
How would you describe your music as a painting? Or if your music were a painting, what would it look like?
I think it would be... the first thing that comes to mind is a sunset in my head, and maybe that comes from Taos because we have such great sunsets here. And again, those bright reds and yellows and oranges are what I feel when I listen to it.
Finally, it is Arielle Vakni's turn to ask a question for anyone, anytime, anywhere in the world. She pauses a little bit, and then comes up with a great question that I'd be more than happy to share with others, and hopefully get the opportunity to let Arielle know about it. And so the story goes on from there.
What is the first thing you thought of when you woke up this morning?